Halo Infinite. Gameplay for the highly anticipated title was shown for the first time on July 23rd, 2020, when the Xbox Game Showcase happened, and it was met with mixed reception. On one hand, people really loved the fact that they were harkening back to classic Halo gameplay, given how Halo 5 was received. On the other hand, a lot of people felt as though the visual fidelity of the game was underwhelming. They appreciate the art style of it, kind of really taking inspiration from Halo 1, but a lot of people felt as though the lighting and texture were flat. A lot of people saw poppin' in the background a little too much for comfort, and it just felt like they were showing a very unpolished version of the game. And so there's been some backlash surrounding that, given that this is supposed to be Xbox Series X's premier title that's supposed to show off the prowess of Xbox Series X. And yes, it is a cross-gen title, but there are those out there who still expected more out of this game, and we're seeing memes surrounding, screen grabs like this right here, where the face really does look awful, not animated, really bad texturing, very blurry, very kind of last-gen looking. And then there's screenshots like this that aren't particularly flattering, with a lack of detail both in the foreground with the enemies looking kind of plasticky, and the background with all the blurry textures and the lack of detail in the environments and the like. So that's where a lot of the backlash has centered around. And the developers of Halo Infinite, 343 Industries, have gone ahead and released a blog post yesterday on July 30th, 2020, in the hopes of addressing a lot of the questions and issues people have with the premiere gameplay. So scrolling down here, you'll find a segment that reads answers to your questions. Shortly after the demo aired, I took to Twitter, scoured Reddit, and checked out forums for common questions that were popping up around the community. There are a lot of questions, and they'll all get answered in time, but I wanted to start by tackling a few that were frequently asked, ones that we should clarify, and some that we have already answered but should resurface. Let's dive in. And unsurprisingly, the very first question that pops up is about the graphics and visuals. And the developers here provide an update on why the graphics may not necessarily look as it will in the final version, why the graphics maybe didn't live up to expectations. Here's what they had to say. First, we want to acknowledge that yes, we have heard the feedback coming from parts of the community regarding the visuals in the Halo Infinite campaign demo. While we see and hear far more positive than negative, we do want to share a bit more context. From our perspective, there are two key areas being debated around the community: overall art style and visual fidelity. Based on our learnings from Halo 4, 5, and Wars 2, along with strong community feedback, we decided to shift back towards the legacy aesthetics that defined the original trilogy. With Halo Infinite, we're returning to a more classic art style, which was a key message going back to the very first reveal that garnered enthusiastic and positive responses. This translates to a more vibrant palette, cleaner models, and objects with less noise, though it doesn't mean less detail. While we appreciate this may not be everyone's personal preference, we stand by this decision and are happy to see it resonating with so many fans around the world. I personally don't mind the art style. I actually think it's really cool that they're kind of taking the Halo Combat Evolved graphics and really modernizing it. It's just really the technical aspects where it got in the way of my being able to enjoy the visual fidelity of the game. And this is something that is addressed in the blog post. The second theme being discussed involves visual fidelity. Negative feedback in this area includes comments around characters and objects appearing flat, simplistic, and plastic-like, lighting feeling dull and flat, and object pop-in. We have read your comments, we have seen the homemade examples of retouched content, and yes, we have heard the Digital Foundry assessments. In many ways, we're in agreement here. We do have work to do to address some of these areas and raise the level of fidelity and overall presentation for the final game. The build used to run the campaign demo was work in progress from several weeks ago, with a variety of graphical elements and game systems still being finished and polished. While some of the feedback was expected and speaks to areas already in progress, other aspects of the feedback have brought new opportunities and considerations to light that the team is taking very seriously and working to assess. We don't have firm answers to outcomes to share yet, but the team is working as quickly as possible on plans to address some of the feedback around detail, clarity, and overall fidelity. fidelity. The team is committed and focused on making sure we have a beautiful world for players to explore when we launch. So right off the bat, I will say this, I do appreciate the level of communication that's going on here, the way the developers are making this a two-way street where they showed off gameplay and maybe not everyone loved what they saw, and they're acknowledging that instead of saying, you guys don't know what you're talking about, we're doing what we're doing. Instead, they're saying, we have heard, the criticism, we know that there's some issues we have to solve, and we're going to go ahead and strive to do the best we can to address these issues and bring the graphics fidelity up to a level that people will be satisfied with. And this is why I think it's so important to actually show gameplay of a title instead of showing some cinematic teaser presentation or cinematically filmed in-engine with the most ideal settings. I did appreciate that Halo Infinite did actually show straight gameplay with, no BS. It allows feedback like this to come in for developers to be able to work off of and hopefully improve the product when it finally launches. Now, I don't know why they used a build of the game that was weeks old to premiere the game. Surely they must have known that all the technical issues seen in the gameplay presentation would have garnered some backlash. First impressions matter, so you really want to show off the latest build possible. I'm guessing maybe it has something to do with the difficulties of working around COVID, perhaps. I don't know, hard to say, but they are saying here this is an earlier build and that the graphics will improve significantly for the final build. And I hope certainly that this is true, that this isn't just marketing fluff. But with all said and done, I can appreciate the developers addressing this and assuring people that they're working on it, that they are aware of the criticism and some of the departments in graphics where they could make improvements. So that gives me a bit more optimism that the final game will look significantly better. But again, only time will tell. There are games that, have looked worse than their marketing material, and there are games that actually did improve the graphics from the marketing material. We'll see where Halo Infinite falls in that spectrum. I'm personally concerned that there is not much time left before Halo Infinite is supposed to launch. It is rumored that it is coming out in November, sometime around there, alongside Xbox Series X. So that's around 4 months of development time that they have left to improve the graphics. We'll see how much they can really bolster the graphical fidelity in that short amount of time. But, it's strange to see like the E3 2018 announcement trailer for Halo Infinite and see just how much more fidelity the graphics had here. I'm wondering what happened between then and now. You skip forward to this segment of the E3 2018 trailer and you look at how lush and beautiful and detailed the world looks here with the way the grass sways and how the landscape is filled with foliage. This genuinely looks gorgeous to look at, and there is some footage here of Master Chief sort of riding through the landscape. And look at this. You compare this to what was shown in the Xbox game showcase, and I find it to be a night and day difference. Even looking at some of the character models in cutscenes, the pilot looks so much better here in E3 2019 than he does here in the Xbox game showcase version. So, yeah, again, I don't know what happened, but the hope is that in the remaining 4 months of development, they'll really be able to bolster the visual fidelity to match what we've seen before, to be closer to that. Other things that were addressed, some kind of multiplayer beta or flighting, they are saying here that the multiplayer of the game may not see a beta, which is disconcerting to me. It reads right here, the Xbox game showcase was only meant to focus on Halo Infinite's campaign. However, I can't blame you all for being curious about the multiplayer experience. As Chris Lee mentioned in his blog, which accompanied the demo last week, our original plans for large-scale flighting aren't where we originally intended, in large part due to the challenges of working from home during the pandemic. At this time, we're honestly not sure what is going to be possible in terms of flighting, but we still hope to have an opportunity for broader public hands-on before release. And as we've previously stated, we'll be relying on flighting and continued feedback and community partnership well beyond launch as we grow and evolve the game together. So it looks like they aren't 100% confident in their ability to host some kind of pre-release beta. And let me tell you, I don't know if many modern-day AAA games where multiplayer is a big part of the experience, that has launched well without hosting some kind of beta to test out, server capacity and load, and to work out balancing and all of the kinks that can be discovered by opening the game up to players before release. They do say here that they are still hoping to have an opportunity for broader public hands-on before release, so something might happen on that front. But not seeing any kind of beta, I think, would be a mistake for a game that so heavily emphasizes multiplayer, especially one that is going for more of like this live service model. Speaking of live service, they do briefly address microtransactions. It reads right down here, microtransactions, Halo Infinite will not include real money loot boxes. Now, of course, by saying there won't be any loot boxes, they are not ruling out the possibility of other forms of monetization. And in fact, according to a leak that was released just earlier today, this morning, it states right here, according to an article from news outlet The Verge, Halo Infinite multiplayer will be free to play in up to 120 frames per second, leaks reveal. Scrolling down here, it states that an Irish retailer has revealed that Halo Infinite's multiplayer mode will be free to play and support up to 120 frames per second. Smith's Toy Superstores briefly posted details about Halo Infinite multiplayer on a promotional page this week before quickly removing them once the internet discovered the references. And here's an exact quote, "The legendary Halo series returns with the most expansive Master Chief campaign yet and a groundbreaking free-to-play multiplayer experience. Enjoy up to 120 frames per second and greatly reduced load times, creating seamless gameplay with Xbox Series X." So I'm assuming that if you purchase Halo Infinite, you're really purchasing the campaign, and then the multiplayer component is something that even if you don't purchase the single player, the campaign, you're able to access. And with any free-to-play experience, there's bound to be some form of monetization, and according to the leaks, that will come in the form of a battle pass system that might be on its way, according to The Verge's article, and further details can be found down here. This segment of the article reads, Chloe Brill, an Xbox leaker that accurately revealed previous Halo Infinite details, backed up the claims that the multiplayer mode will be free to play. The leaker also claims the arena mode will aim for up to 120 frames per second, and that multiplayer Halo Infinite will include a battle pass system and new customization options. So we'll see how all of that pans out. In theory, a campaign of Halo Infinite that isn't affected by monetization in any way, and having a separate free-to-play multiplayer mode that just about anyone can access could work so long as the price points and the monetization is implemented in a way that it's balanced, where it's not overpriced, where players have a gameplay path towards earning those rewards, where it's not super egregious in how it encourages players to pay up. The lack of loot boxes is a good sign, but that's no guarantee of a monetization system that's consumer friendly or that is within reason, that feels fair. So that is up in the air. With any microtransaction scheme, I'm always concerned. It's hard to say without getting additional details. I wish this blog post would provide just more details on their plans on that front. Obviously, whatever form of microtransactions and battle pass and paid rewards they implement cannot affect gameplay in any way, shape, or form. That's like a big no-no, especially for a competitive multiplayer game like Halo. To close off the video, a couple more details relayed by the blog post. Right here, they talk about split-screen co-op. The campaign will support 2-player split-screen and online 4-player co-op. Yes, you can play on your couch with a friend, so that's cool. Scrolling further down, there are details about how the grapple hook will work in multiplayer. It reads right here, equipment items like the grapple shot function differently in multiplayer and will be available as items that can be picked up on the map. As far as resolution and frame rates go, the question asks, we have heard 4K 60 FPS. Is that the best you can do, even on PC? They clarify that up to 4K 60 FPS is our target for our expansive campaign experience on Xbox Series X. As PC players expect, there will be plenty of settings that you can tweak to create the experience that you want, and we'll have even more details on that in the coming months. So if you're on PC, obviously you'll have all of the settings you can tweak, and you can really max out those frame rates if you have have the hardware. Speaking of PC, is it true that Halo Infinite will be coming to Steam? Yes, Halo Infinite will be available on PC via Xbox Game Pass for PC, the Microsoft Store, and Steam, in addition to Xbox Series X and the entire Xbox One family of consoles. A lot of people obviously prefer Steam on PC, so that's good to hear. And then the developers confirmed that there will be multiple difficulty settings: easy, normal, heroic, and legendary, classic Halo stuff. And on top of microtransactions, this list of bullet points confirms that there will be player customization, noting how if you liked the customization options in Halo Reach, then you'll be pleased. So that might give you some idea as to the type of customization and the level of customization we can expect in Infinite. So those are about all of the main details you need to know from the blog post and from recent leaks. And this is how 343 Industries has addressed the backlash surrounding Halo Infinite graphics. All I can say for now is that, I'm going to wait until the final game releases and I'll report back, let you know whether improvements have been made, how the game overall looks and feels from beginning to end. I'll look forward to sharing those details with you guys once I get my hands on the game. But in the meantime, let me know in the comments below what your thoughts and opinions are on the blog post from the Halo Infinite developers. Are you more optimistic based on what they said, or do you still feel like you have mixed feelings about the game? Or are you full on looking forward to Halo Infinite? Drop a comment below, and to be further updated on all things gaming news, reviews, and discussions, stay tuned right here on Young Yeah. I'll see you guys next time. Young out.